the letter in the mail says Dominion's coming through, and they want us to think there's nothing we can do. Hard to believe, but we found out it's true. They want to build a 42-inch pipeline. We don't want your pipeline. We don't want your pipeline. We'll take the sunshine, the water, and wind. We're gonna put a stop sign on Dominion's pipeline. Go tell your neighbors, go tell your friends.
The most crucial part of any permit for a new facility is whether it's necessary and provides a benefit to the general public. And FERC issues a certificate that says that. It's a certificate of public convenience and necessity. The only difficulty is they don't really independently evaluate either one of those things.
So what did Dominion originally claim about the need for the HCP, and did they have anything supporting evidence for that claim other than that they were going to make a whole load of money off of this?
Well, they never claimed that publicly, but that was certainly the purpose of the project. They claimed that 80% of its capacity would be needed for new power plants that were intended to be built in Virginia and North Carolina up until 2030. They never provided any evidence that that would in fact occur. And it didn't occur. None of those power plants that were proposed to state regulators to be built. And they haven't been built and most likely won't be built. Now, FERC never checked whether that was true or not. They just took the utility's word for that.
Gosh, there's so many ways to inspire others in this fight. Art is one of the greatest because it's joyful too. It's a fun, communicating through art, either music or sculpture or any kind of art generally brings a little bit of joy. And the thing that we all need when you're running this marathon of a race with these guys is joy. Interject it whenever you can. And I think too, when you're doing something that's a little bit more joyful and colorful, it attracts some media attention that is, it's a tough issue, but it's still a happier coverage, I guess you could call it. But so I think definitely through art, letters to the editor. You cannot underestimate those. You're getting your opinion out there. And for people in the community to be letting other people in the community know what they know in a way in which is, if they're known, that creates trust in your community. They can ask questions. Farmers market. Wow, we did the farmers market for years. And that was a great way to talk to visitors and locals alike, keeping them up to date on the latest petition, the latest happening in government. There was always something. There was always something we could bring up and educate the public about, and actually having them sign something kind of forced them for a few minutes to read what it was, and hopefully that in turn would keep it fresh in their minds.
Every week, Saturday morning, from 8 till 12, we would have a tent, a canopy, with t-shirts for which we could receive donations. They were not for sale.
Right, no.
And every week, when I was doing it, I would write up something that people could sign. There was information there about the pipeline. But largely it was a kind of a one-on-one thing. You do enough of an attraction to get people over, and they get them in conversation, and other people come over, and so on. You get them to sign this petition that goes to, somebody in the legislature, or a letter to the governor, or whatever, just to keep the pot boiling, sort of, and to get the feedback from the people as to what was on their minds. So, I would write these letters, and every week I would send off a packet of 30 to 50, depending on how hot the issue was. And made it simple for them. They just had to sign their name and give their zip code or something, whatever's minimally needed to make it legit.
Do things that are unexpected. You can't play the game that the big guy has set out. If you play that game, you're gonna lose because, you know, they control everything and they have so much more power and resources. So what you have to do when you're the little guy is not follow the program. Denying the survey served as a rallying cry. It pulled people together. That was one thing it did. It gave us media attention and attention in general. The second thing it did. It caused wonderful delays that are very useful in general. Really long delays, so that was really great. It was the only means available for a landowner to really be clear that they opposed the project on their property.
That probably public awareness was going to be key. And so I started Free Nelson at about the same time that Friends of Nelson was starting up. Charlie Weinberg was at that point in time, was doing the Facebook work for Friends of Nelson. And so we would talk every night to see, well, what are you posting so I don't post what you post? And we were taking actually a different stance eventually, one going more in the litigation realm, and we were going more in the grassroots, keep the drum beat visible and audible. So then I asked Sharon Ponton and Marilyn Shiflett to join me on Free Nelson so that we could all post. Of course, it didn't show who was posting; it just posted as Free Nelson, so that we could keep that drum beat moving. And of course, Elena Amadon was also working in a separate group, and so the three groups seemed to be doing different things, but all contributing to the process of keeping things in the public eye. We began to do interviews of property owners and putting that on Facebook. John Ed was probably the most central of the folks that we interviewed. He was so passionate about his opposition to the pipeline and not coming through his property, and his joy in Nelson County being kept pipeline free and how beautiful the land was. And so I began to realize there was a stewardship link for churches, that care of the environment is a call for most faiths. And in my own tradition, the Episcopal tradition, it's the stewardship of the earth is really part of what we're pledged to uphold. So regardless of political party, it seemed like I could appeal to getting some support from my faith tradition and perhaps other churches in the area.
As a farmer, you know, he was concerned about contamination of the water, the streams for beef cows, both from sediment, you know, the erosion from the pipeline construction, and also the chemicals that they would have to use to keep weeds down, the herbicides and all of that. He was concerned about how the well water would be contaminated because, of course, most of Nelson County is well water. He was concerned about, you know, fear of explosion. They had an explosion in Appomattox, and you know, which was close by near Nelson, and of course they've had other explosions and leaks.
Well, you know, he'd wear his bib overalls because that's what he always wore, and show up, and you know, his ball cap, and he would sit and listen, and they told him he was their poster child sometimes. So, and but you know, it meant a lot to him. It meant a lot to him to have people, you know, supporting him. And you know, we noticed that he started to slip some. He couldn't sleep. He worried constantly. All day long. That's all he thought about was the pipeline. And so it really helped him to be with other people that he knew were fighting. Maybe they didn't have all the generations, you know, of family on a piece of property, but their property meant just as much to them too.
The people, of course, were very upset. They didn't have a really in-depth, understanding of what that meant. But I think Friends of Nelson started out it was great with all of the information and talking points. And Reverend Rose really took the lead, because it went through a huge amount of his family property. And then we just got together with other people in the community and explained, what was happening, and also what they could expect, that they would be getting communication from ACP, from Dominion, about that they were on the route, and that they would get letters requesting surveys. And so we had prepared people, and that was really very important to get early on, to get people to understand what was going to happen. But it became very pressworthy. The original article I found, the first article on Reverend Rose, was from that Seaville weekly paper. It was from October of 2014. And then I am trying to think how I got connected with Michael Martz at the Richmond Times.
He became interested in the story and then kept coming back and really was a huge advocate. Didn't write advocacy journalism, but just got the facts out, which were a kind of, they advocated for us themselves, the facts.
I think earlier on, we were more focused on the denying of survey in the Wingina area, and people, and really documenting the impact personally on people and on their land, and particularly a lot of these families that have held onto their land for generations. So at first it was I think more of a press and kind of public education, because that was one of I don't know if that was the original or one of the original routes. But then later on, as we got more sophisticated, and then our land ended up on one of the alternative routes, that's when we went into this major effort and worked a lot with Ron and did the Dear Neighbor letters, identified everybody on the route, and wrote letters, went door to door, identified which people were just landowners but didn't live in the area, and that it was very comprehensive in terms of, you're going to get this information, here's what to do. We recommend that you get an attorney and the options there. So, I think we all, as you said, we all learned through the process and got,
what is this process?
A lot more just a lot more involved and kind of understood what the kind of education that people needed.
Bring it to the attention of the public, then it does go on record somehow,
Yeah.
a little bit bolder than it was before. And so when it is accumulating, then you got this resistance that's going on. And these people, when the people who are in those decisions, when they see that there are people caring in numbers and are going to be negatively affected in numbers, then the ones who are human can make the difference in a vote. And it only takes one vote sometimes.
The very first thing I think you ought to do is talk to your friends and your neighbors. Start some communication lines, because two heads are better than one. And if you are in part of a community, there's going to be a lot of ideas thrown out how to fight the pipeline. Some of them are going to be pie in the sky, and you're just going to toss those out the window. They might feel good to say them, but they're not going to work. But other people are going to have good, solid suggestions that the community as a whole can and should follow. And there's going to be a lot of different ideas thrown out, and you need to be open-minded to all of the ideas that come from your friends and your community. So communication is first and foremost if you receive notice that a pipeline is coming to your neighborhood.
And I believe during the pipeline fight, the Atlantic Coast pipeline fight, that it was the grassroots work, whether it was going to a planning commission meeting to try to stop a work yard from going in somewhere, whether it was going to Richmond to a public hearing, or to a local board of supervisors to a public hearing, or having a, something outside somewhere, some protest. It was that grassroots work through all those long years, and they were long, tough years. But it was that work that set up the legal fight, that made the legal fight be what it was. And in the end, Dominion, we always told ourselves we had to outlast Dominion by one day. And so July 5th of 2020, when I was sitting in my car waiting for Johnny and saw that come across my scroll, and that they had decided they weren't going to build the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, well, we had all outlasted them that one day.
Well, it never crossed our minds that we wouldn't fight. No matter what happened, we knew we were right. For 6 years we fought, we marched and wrote letters, knowing if we won, we would make the world better. We don't want your pipeline, we don't want your pipeline. We'll take the sunshine, the water and wind. We put up like a stop sign on Dominion's pipeline. Go tell your neighbors, go tell your friends.